We're joined now by former Labour MP Stephen Pound and broadcaster Mike Parry here in the studio.
Morning.
Good morning.
Now,
yesterday, Nigel Farage made his maiden speech, something he's been waiting for years and years to do. And in it, he made quite a controversial suggestion. Should we have a referendum on the ECHR? And I think we've got a clip of him saying it right now.
We will only stop this if we start deporting people that come illegally. Then they won't pay the smugglers. But we'll only do that by leaving the ECHR. But I've got a fun suggestion that I think would liven up politics, engage the public, and see a massively increased turnout. Why don't we have a referendum on whether we continue to be members of the ECHR?
So this is such absolute arrant nonsense. I mean, basically what he's talking about is a 5-week campaign for reform. But look, let's get a couple of things straight. The ECHR has been going since 1950, and there's only 3 European countries which aren't members of it, which is Russia, Belarus and, sadly, the Vatican City.
OK, but sorry, nor is Australia, the United States, New Zealand, Japan. Well, no, we're not part of the EU anymore.
The clue is that the European.
But why do we need it?
European. I'll tell you why we need it, because we need to have some common, decent standards that actually apply to us in Europe. But the key thing here is British courts do not have to obey the rulings of ECHR.
Well, no, but they always do.
Yes.
They always do. And Stephen, I'm completely...
Less than 1% of ECHR rulings have actually affected the UK. Less than 1%.
Yes, but unfortunately, it sometimes is an anonymous judge in the middle of the night stopping people from leaving this country who legally have been told to get out. Well, it's a preposterous imposition on the British way of life, considering now we're not even in Europe, and we should get rid. And Nigel Farage, by the way, is just setting out his agenda right at the start of his parliamentary career. He knows there's not a hope in hell of this happening.
Let's Stephen in.
We actually, we got Peter Reich, he's our judge. We have a judge on the European Court of Human Rights, a UK judge elected by when we had members of the European Parliament.
But Stephen, isn't the problem that because Tony Blair embedded the ECHR in our own law through the Human Rights Act, actually we don't have that choice. And although everybody agrees the ECHR started with good intention, it's a living convention. Judges just interpret it how they want to.
I mean, as ever, you talk a lot of sense, but look, there's only one aspect of British law which is fundamentally effective, which is the Northern Ireland Good Friday Agreement. If we pull out of ECHR, we collapse the Good Friday Agreement.
I don't. I totally disagree. That is a red herring. And when you said,
it's not a red herring. It's a fact.
And when you said there's a British judge in the ECHR, have you looked at the composition of the ECHR? Most of the people in it are not judges. Most of them are sort of legal advocates in Europe. They're not judges. It's not like they've all got robes and all that.
There's 46 judges elected by the 46 countries. All of them are legally qualified.
They might be legally qualified, but they're not to judge status. Believe me, they would not be able to sit at the Old Bailey in this country because they don't have the qualifications.
But Mike,
it's a huge European bloc to try and make everybody obey them.
But Mike, isn't Farage being a bit simplistic here? Because yes, there's lots of disadvantages of being the ECHR, but actually it does provide for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, things that our current domestic legislation doesn't.
But that's what it was set up for. I think it was 48 actually, Stephen. I think it was 2 years earlier than you said in 50.
It was codified in 1950. But in September 1953.
But Churchill initiated, I think, in 1948. Anyway, the point I'm saying is, what you've just said, Miriam, is why it was set up. But now its tentacles spread into every area of our life.
Like where?
Every area of our life.
Well, stopping the small boats.
Exactly.
The most important thing.
British law stopped that.
No.
UK law stopped
when Tony Blair invented his Human Rights Act, that was to give us a mirror image of the ECHR in Europe, from which we could never withdraw from.
That's just paranoia.
It's not paranoia. I'm not paranoid.
I'm not sure I could face a referendum campaign. Would it be like Brexit again?
As our friend Brenda in Bristol would say, another one?
Oh, not another one.
Right, shall we move on?
Yes.
What about Britain? Oh, let's do James Cleverly. He's the first leader to announce his... the first leader.
Yeah.
There we go. The first Tory to announce his leadership credentials. He's launched his campaign. Will he make a good leader of the opposition, Stephen Pound?
I don't know. It's a job, to be honest. You wouldn't wish on your worst enemy at the present time. He's a strong candidate, without any doubt. But look, the point here is actually not so much James James Cleverly. It's where on the Conservative spectrum does the new leader come from? Is it the centre-right? Is it the far-right? Is it the One Nation Tories? Cleverly's actually put his stall out quite well. He's known in Parliament, I mean, certainly I was in Parliament with him, he was known for very plain speaking. I mean, you remember how he described the Rwanda plan?
Or a city in northern England.
Indeed, he wasn't particularly fond of Stockton.
No, exactly.
Look, I mean, he's ex-forces, you know, he's a strong character. I think there's some interesting people out there. Personally, from the Labour point of view, the person we'd be most frightened of, I think, would be somebody like Jeremy Hunt.
Yeah.
But Mike, is there a problem at this?
Sorry, Miriam, to interject. I'll have to address that. You think Jeremy Hunt should... What did you say about Jeremy Hunt?
I think from the Labour point of view, if you're looking... When somebody who's not a member... And I'm obviously not a Conservative. I'm naturally looking at the person who, A, can do best for the country, but B, can actually be somebody that we could actually work with.
Yeah.
So you're saying they need someone in the mould of Jeremy Hunt?
I think that is... I mean, if all elections are won on the middle ground, the centre ground, Jeremy Hunt...
But they're not.
But they're not.
No, the centre ground moves, doesn't it?
No, this is total cobblers. You see, James Cleverly's out of the running for me from this one expression. We need a broad appeal to win the voters back. You don't need broad appeal. You need small C Conservative policies like Mrs Thatcher brought us over a period of years and gradually work them in. All this nonsense about, you know, One Nation Tories and you can only win an election if you win it from the middle. I don't agree at all. The reason that Tories have been shambolic for the last 2 or 3 times they've been in power is because they haven't had any policies. David Cameron started it, moved towards Liberal Democrats and embraced them, and it's been a shambles ever since.
But isn't this the problem, that people say they want unity? Well, the party says they want unity, but they don't know what to unify around. Do we need some philosophies before we have a leader?
What we need is we need some small C Conservative policies, lower taxes, smaller government, you know, self-reliance. Those are the sort of things. Why do you think the Red Wall was the Red Wall? Because they're the qualities the people of the north of England embraced and thought, we get them here. But every time I hear a politician going right back to James Callaghan talking about our party's a broad church, what you mean is it's got a load of differing views and you're not strong enough to isolate the ones that are going to win an election.
Well, Harold Wilson used to say it's a broad church, but it's full of knaves.
And it has no religion, as Robert Jenrick has said.
And even a broad church
We're going to have to
walls.
move on. Let's hope that PMQs is this lively. But now